It will leave the budget in the red for years to come, reaching $154 billion by 2023-24.
Well, $155 billion of debt.
To pay for all of that, there are new taxes, and net debt is forecast to reach $154 billion by 2024.
And we're going to see interest rise to $4 billion a year. That's the equivalent of 4 Royal Children's Hospitals.
The public sector wage bill is expected to grow from $29 to $33 billion over the next 4 years.
Of course, what the Premier wants to do is for everyone to forget about the second wave, to forget about hotel quarantine.
Even on the Treasurer's own figures, Victoria's unemployment rate will be worse than the national average every year for the next 4 years. Now, we just think that's not very ambitious. We'd like to think we can get Victoria back to the top, back to where we need to be. But the government's budget seems to have run up the white flag and just accepted that our unemployment's going to be worse than everywhere else in the country pretty much for the next 4 years. Now, I think we could do better.
Well, today's Labor budget is big on taxes, it's big on borrowing, but it's weak on jobs and it's weak on hope. And that's what Victorians were after more than anything else. Victorians wanted jobs and Victorians wanted hope, and this budget is just too weak when it comes to those important things. 1 in 5 Victorians who are of working age either are out of a job or can't get enough hours. So that's a jobs crisis.
And one of the missed opportunities here is the opportunity to support small business. We know that small business is the jobs engine room of the state, but they've been neglected, they've been relegated in favour of mega projects that'll take mega billions and potentially mega years to actually get done.
We are already the highest tax state in Australia, and unlike, say, New South Wales, who took the opportunity to do major tax reform, but also big business tax cuts, we haven't seen that in this budget. So this government has a real history of being a high taxing government already.
Small business is the great jobs engine room of Victoria. It employs so many women who've been really hard hit by the pandemic. And we're just so disappointed that the government has missed a golden opportunity to really support small business. Now, how about payroll tax cuts? How about helping hands for those sole traders who've done it so tough? Instead, I think the government is focusing on hard hats to the exclusion of everyone else in the economy, and that's not very fair. Exactly what Victoria wants. They want a positive agenda for getting this state back to work and back in business.
What was missing from this year's budget was one of the budget books, specifically the one that outlined budget blowouts.
Well, Brett, I'd say borrowing to build is one thing, but borrowing to waste is something else entirely. And the great missing budget paper from today is the budget paper that details what's happening with Labor's mega projects, what the cost is, what the cost blowouts are, and what the delays are. And that budget paper just wasn't released today. So I think the government's a bit worried that their track record on delivering major projects has been pretty ordinary. And I think that people want to see recovery. As I say, borrowing to build, borrowing to create jobs is one thing, but borrowing to waste money is something that no Victorian wants, especially not when the interest bill is going to get up to $4 billion a year.
The government's actually cut the funding for the Anti-Corruption Commission. Now, this is the biggest borrowing budget Victoria's ever seen, yet Daniel Andrews is actually cutting the funding for the Anti-Corruption Watchdog. You've got to ask yourself, why would he do that?
Brett, I've got a very positive plan to get Victoria back to work and back in business. I'm a former Treasurer of this state. When we were last in government, Victoria created more jobs than any state in the country in our 4 years. I'm really proud of that. I think that's exactly what Victoria wants. They want a positive agenda for getting this state back to work and back in business. Today we saw an agenda of tax and borrowing. I think we can do better than that, and I'm very happy to have a contest of ideas with the government over the next 2 years, because if you have a good contest of ideas in politics, then the winners will be the Victorian public.